The crosshair settled on her daughter's hand. Katherine Harlow had made impossible shots before. Targets at 1,200 meters through mountain wind. Moving vehicles across shifting desert thermals. Human silhouettes reduced to mathematical problems of elevation and lead. But this was different. The woman in her scope didn't know she was being watched. Didn't know the detonator in her grip would explode in 3 seconds if the pressure plate failed. Didn't know the sniper tracking her breathing pattern was the mother she'd never met. Kit's finger rested against the trigger. 2.7 pounds of pressure separated the woman from life or death. The math was clean. Range 1,100 meters. Wind 2 clicks left. Humidity factored. Temperature compensated. But the target wasn't a silhouette anymore. It was a hand. Young, steady, capable. The detonator itself measured 3 inches by 2, smaller than a deck of cards. Kit's bullet would need to strike the device without touching flesh. Thread the gap between thumb and trigger housing, a margin of error measured in millimeters. She found the space between heartbeats. The quiet place her father had called the still point, where time dilated and the world narrowed to crosshairs and mathematics. Her finger moved. The rifle whispered. The detonator exploded in a flash of sparks, and the woman's hand jerked away, intact, bleeding but whole. Kit's scope tracked the woman stumbling backward, clutching her hand, alive, searching the ridgeline with trained eyes that would never find her. Kit whispered into the wind, words no one would hear. Not my daughter, not today. Then the scope went black and the world reset to 48 hours earlier. The cabin smelled of gun oil and coffee. Kit Harlow sat at her workbench in the thin gray light before dawn, her father's rifle laid across a wool blanket like a body prepared for burial. The M1903 Springfield had been old when her father carried it through frozen mountains in Korea. Now it was ancient. The woodstock bore scars from impacts she would never witness. The barrel had been relined twice. The scope mount was custom work from a machinist who died before Kit was born. She cleaned it every Sunday morning, regardless of whether it had been fired. Ritual mattered. Continuity mattered. Some things you maintained not because they were useful, but because forgetting them meant forgetting who you were. Outside the window, Colorado's Sangre de Cristo range caught the first light. Mountains older than nations. Stone that remembered nothing and forgot nothing. Kit had chosen this place precisely for its isolation. 15 miles from the nearest town, no neighbors within visual range. A single dirt road that became impassable 6 months of the year. The kind of nowhere that suited ghosts. She was 52 years old. Her hands were steady in a way that confused doctors who saw the X-rays of old fractures and torn ligaments. Her left eye was cross-dominant. She shot left-handed. Instructors had tried to train it away. Make her conform, standardize the deviation. She'd kept it, turned limitation into strength. Now she could shoot from positions that tied right-handed snipers in knots. The first sun touched the rifle and Kit set down her cleaning rod. She stood, stretched, counted the pops in her spine. 12, the same number as yesterday. Her body cataloged its complaints every morning now. The knee that clicked, the shoulder that ached before storms, the ribs that never quite healed right after the fall. But her hands remained steady. That was what mattered. Hands were the instrument. Everything else was just the machinery that positioned them. She made eggs, black coffee, toast that she ate standing at the counter while reading yesterday's newspaper, because internet was for people who wanted to be found. The headline spoke of scandals she didn't care about, politicians lying to cameras, markets rising and falling like tides. None of it touched her. She existed in the margins of a country that had forgotten her name. The phone rang at 0630. Kit stared at it. The burner cell she kept charged in a drawer. 8 years since anyone had called that number. She'd almost thrown it away a dozen times, but something, instinct or paranoia or habit, had kept her feeding it fresh batteries every 6 months. Now it buzzed against wood with an insistence that felt like accusation. She picked it up, said nothing, waited. A man's voice, professional, controlled. The kind of control that came from practice rather than nature. Katherine Harlow, code word Guadalcanal. Kit's hand tightened on the phone. Only 3 people knew that word. All of them were supposed to be dead. Her father, her old team leader, the FBI handler who debriefed her in 2003. She counted heartbeats. 4, 5. Then she spoke, voice rust and gravel from disuse. Who is this? Special Agent David Chen, FBI. I need you to listen very carefully because I'm only going to say this once and then this phone gets destroyed. Kit moved to the window, scanned the tree line. Nothing moved but wind. I don't take calls from feds. 3 names: Marcus Doyle, Tanya Reeves, Jackson Holt. The world stopped. Those names belonged to a life Kit had buried. 1st Marine Division, the fire team that had walked through hell with her in places the maps called other things. Doyle with his steady hands and steadier nerve. Reeves, who could rewire anything with a battery. Holt, who drove like physics was a suggestion. They'd been at her discharge hearing, testified on her behalf. It hadn't mattered. But they tried. That had mattered. What about them? Kit said, and her voice had gone flat. Combat flat. The tone that meant she was already calculating ranges and angles and body counts. They're at an abandoned mining facility called Ruby Ridge, 80 miles from your position. JSOC has a kill team moving on them right now. 12 operators, full tactical package. Timeline says your old teammates have maybe 16 hours before they're overrun. Kit's free hand found the workbench, steadied herself. Why? That's not relevant to your immediate decision. What's relevant is they need someone who can keep them alive for 36 hours. FBI Tactical is en route, but DOJ is playing games with my warrant. I need time. They need protection. You're the only asset in range with the skill set. I'm not an asset. I'm not anything. You have the wrong number. Katherine Harlow, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. Scout Sniper. Dishonorably discharged, October 2002. Current residence off-grid, San Isabel National Forest. You qualified expert with the M40 at ranges up to 1,000 meters. You hold the unofficial record for longest confirmed kill in urban terrain, Fallujah 2001, 940 meters through 3 walls in a sandstorm. The shot the Corps never acknowledged because acknowledging it would have meant acknowledging you. Kit said nothing. Let the silence stretch. Chen continued, I know what happened in 2002. I know why they discharged you. I know the fall from that helicopter wasn't an accident. And I know you're the only person within 100 miles who can make the shots I need made in the next 36 hours. What shots? Non-lethal. Precision, delaying action. Keep JSOC off balance until I arrive with authority to shut them down. No kills. You kill a federal operator and I can't protect you. But you wound them, disable their equipment, make them think they're facing a platoon instead of one woman, and my people have time to arrive and end this legally. Kit laughed. It came out bitter. You want me to fight a JSOC kill team with one hand tied behind my back. I'm asking you to be better than they are, to prove that experience and precision beat youth and firepower, to show them that a 52-year-old woman they threw away is worth more than their entire tactical playbook. The manipulation was transparent. Kit heard it, recognized it, felt it work anyway because some truths didn't stop being true just because someone weaponized them. She looked at her father's rifle, thought about the words carved into the stock and letters worn smooth by decades of handling. High ground means patience. Patience means choices. Choices save lives. 36 hours, Kit said. Maximum. Possibly less if I can expedite the warrant, but you need to assume you're alone until I physically arrive. Equipment, whatever you have. This is a black bag operation. Unofficial. If you're captured or killed, the FBI will disavow any knowledge of your involvement. Sounds familiar? Kit said. She'd heard that speech before. Right before they'd sent her into places that weren't supposed to exist to do things that never officially happened. What's the tactical picture? Chen's voice shifted. This was the part he'd been dreading. JSOC believes your 3 Marines are traitors. They've been classified as hostile enemy combatants on U.S. soil. The kill team has authorization to use lethal force. They will not negotiate. They will not arrest. They will eliminate and sterilize. Why do they think Doyle's team betrayed anyone? That's classified above my clearance. What I know is the classification is wrong. What I know is those 3 Marines found something someone powerful once buried. What I know is they're going to unless someone evens the odds for 36 hours. Kit closed her eyes, ran the math. 80 miles, call it 90 minutes driving secondary roads. Time to prep gear, maybe 15 minutes. That put her on site by 0900 if she left now. JSOC would be moving at first light. Call it 0730. She'd be late to the party. already playing catch-up against a dozen operators who would have every advantage except one. They wouldn't know she was coming. "I'm moving," Kit said. "Don't call this number again." She killed the connection, dropped the phone into a glass of water, watched it die. Then she moved with the efficiency of muscle memory practiced over decades. The prep took 12 minutes. Rifle broken down and cased. Subsonic ammunition. 200 rounds because running dry in a firefight was how amateurs died. Rangefinder. Compact spotting scope. Medical kit because she might need to patch herself and definitely couldn't walk into a hospital with a gunshot wound. No backup weapon. Weight mattered more than firepower when you were climbing mountains alone. Water. Energy bars. A fleece layer because October at elevation killed as sure as bullets. Gloves. A watch cap in earth tones. No body armor because armor was for people expecting to get shot at, and Kit's entire philosophy was, don't be where the bullets are going. She loaded everything into her truck. A 1998 Ford Ranger that ran on stubbornness and spite. No GPS, no OnStar, nothing that could be tracked. She'd bought it cash from a rancher's widow 10 years ago and maintained it herself. It burned oil and the alignment pulled left, but it started every time, and that was all that mattered. The drive ate 90 minutes of her life. Secondary roads through national forest. 2-lane blacktop that wound through mountains still wearing night shadows in their valleys. She saw 3 other vehicles, a logging truck, a rancher's Suburban, a tourist in a rented SUV who was lost and didn't know it yet. None of them saw her. She drove like she shot, smooth, unremarkable, a ghost passing through. At a pull-off 20 miles from Ruby Ridge, she stopped, pulled out the rifle, a custom-built precision instrument that had cost her 8 months of gunsmith work and money she couldn't afford. The action was glass smooth. The trigger broke at exactly 2.5 pounds. The barrel was hand-lapped. The scope was Leupold, the only brand her father had trusted. She verified 0 at 200 meters using a fence post and a target the size of an aspirin. Put 3 rounds through it. Adjusted half a click, right. Put 2 more through center. The rifle whispered truth. Kit listened. She continued driving. Ruby Ridge appeared in her spotting scope at 0847, an old copper mine from the 50s. 3 main buildings in various states of collapse. Rusted equipment creating natural cover. Mine shafts that led into darkness. The kind of place that showed up in property records, but never in anyone's plans. Perfect for people who needed to disappear. Kit found her position 1,200 meters west, an outcrop of granite that gave her elevation and a 360 view. She moved carefully, every step calculated. Knee, elbow, knee, pause. The approach took 40 minutes. She used the time to glass the compound, count threats, map firing positions. 12 operators. Chen had been accurate. They moved with professional precision, overlapping fields of fire, proper spacing, coordinated maneuvers. These weren't contractors or weekend warriors. This was Tier 1 talent, JSOC's best, the kind of people who made careers out of being ghosts themselves. And there, setting up a hide on the eastern rise, a figure that made Kit pause. Smaller than the others, compact, moving with a fluidity that spoke of training so deep it became instinct. Female. Had to be. The build was wrong for male. The movement patterns were subtly different. Kit watched her construct the hide using techniques that tickled recognition in Kit's mind. Non-standard placement. Elevation chosen for unconventional angles. Camouflage that broke up outline instead of matching terrain. Kit had written those techniques in a training manual in 2002. Observations from a decade of fieldwork. The Corps had classified it and buried it because the author was about to be discharged. She'd assumed it had been destroyed. But someone had read it. Someone had learned. Someone was using her own doctrine against the people she was here to protect. The woman settled into position, adjusted her scope, began scanning sectors with the patience of someone who understood that sniping was 90% waiting and 10% violence. Kit marked the position on her mental map. 700 meters northeast, elevated, good sight lines, problematic. Through the spotting scope, Kit found the 3 Marines inside the central building. They'd barricaded windows, stacked equipment for cover, set up fighting positions that showed tactical awareness. Doyle would have done that. He'd been a sergeant when Kit knew him. Looked like he still thought like one. But they were trapped. 12 against 3. Nightfall 6 hours away. JSOC would breach before dark. Kit's job was to make that breach so costly they reconsidered. Make them think about casualties. Make them call for backup. Make them slow down. 36 hours, she could do this. The first JSOC assault came at 09:15, flashbangs through windows, breaching charges on the door, textbook dynamic entry. Kit was already tracking the breacher. A big man, 6'2", moving fast for his size. He had the charge positioned, 3 seconds from detonation. Kit found the space between heartbeats, fired. The bullet flew true, not at flesh, at the detonator itself. The breaching charge exploded prematurely, a flash and bang that threw the breacher backward. Unhurt, but confused. The assault element froze. That wasn't supposed to happen. Charges didn't detonate early, not unless someone shot them. Kit fired again. A second operator had pulled a flashbang. Kit's bullet hit it mid-arc. The flashbang exploded in the air, blinding the team through their night vision. Controlled chaos rippled through their formation. Third shot, the communications antenna on their vehicle. A clean hit. The antenna folded and their radio net degraded to line of sight only. No calling for air support. No coordinating with higher headquarters. They were isolated now, alone, facing an enemy they couldn't see. The JSOC team pulled back. Kit heard their frustrated voices on her scanner. Fragments of transmission. Sniper. Unknown position. Single shooter. They sounded uncertain. Good. Uncertainty was her ally. She relocated, 400 meters south. Different angle, different elevation. Movement was life. Static snipers were dead snipers. She'd learned that watching people die who forgot. Through her scope, she watched the female sniper begin her search. Methodical, professional, checking all the conventional positions first. Hilltops, tree lines, rock formations with natural cover. She wouldn't find Kit because Kit wasn't in conventional positions. Kit was in the uncomfortable spot, the place that required a 400-meter scramble over broken rock, the location that hurt to reach and hurt to maintain. But hurt meant alive, comfort meant dead. The JSOC commander stepped into view. Kit's finger found the trigger, then stopped. This was wrong. Commanders didn't expose themselves. Not in active fire zones, not against unknown snipers. This was bait. They wanted her to shoot, wanted to track her muzzle flash, wanted to vector the female sniper onto her position. Kit waited, breath steady, heart rate slow. The commander stood in the open for 90 seconds, finally retreated. Kit smiled. They thought they were hunting her. They had it backward. The assault came again at 10:00. Different approach, smoke grenades, suppressing fire, a vehicle-mounted machine gun putting rounds through the barricaded windows. The 3 Marines inside would be pinned, unable to return fire, waiting for the inevitable breach. Kit shot the machine gunner's hands, not to kill, to disable. The bullet struck between his gloves and the weapon's grip. He jerked back, blood streaming, the machine gun silent. Kit shifted target, the smoke grenade operator. Shot the grenade still in his hand. It detonated in a cloud of white that engulfed half the assault team. They stumbled blind through their own smokescreen. Inside the compound, she heard return fire. The Marines were still fighting, still alive. Kit's job was to keep them that way. She counted her shots. 11 rounds expended, no kills. 11 operators wounded or equipment destroyed. The ratio mattered. Every round needed to change the tactical picture. Ammunition was finite. Time was finite. Waste either, and people died. The female sniper was moving. Kit tracked her through the scope, watched her reposition to a spot that would give her a view of Kit's last firing position. Smart, patient, trained. Kit felt a strange pride despite herself. Whoever this woman was, she'd learned well. But she'd learned from Kit's manual, which meant Kit knew how she thought, knew where she'd look next, knew the mistakes she'd make because they were the same mistakes Kit had made 20 years ago before experience taught her better. Kit set a thermal decoy, a chemical heat pack wrapped in fabric, just enough signature to look like body heat to thermal optics. She placed it 300 meters from her actual position. Then she waited. The female sniper found it. Kit watched through her scope as the woman's rifle swung toward the decoy, watched her settle, watched her breathe, watched her prepare to fire. Kit didn't shoot. Instead, she whispered into the wind, "Not yet, kid, I need you to wonder." The woman fired. The decoy erupted in a spray of synthetic fill and chemical heat. The woman would be expecting return fire, expecting muzzle flash, expecting something. Kit gave her nothing, just relocated again, let the mystery compound. Let the doubt grow, because doubt made people cautious. Caution made people slow. Slow meant Kit's Marines had more time. The sun climbed toward noon. Heat rose from the rocks. The air shimmered. Mirage made distance, calculations harder. Kit compensated. She'd shot in worse conditions. Desert thermals that bent light like water. Mountain winds that changed direction every 100 meters. Rain that turned ballistics into prayer. This was just Colorado, just October, just another day at the office. At 11:30, JSOC brought in heavy equipment, a 50 caliber machine gun, belt-fed, devastating. It could punch through the building's walls like cardboard. The Marines inside would have nowhere to hide. Kit couldn't shoot the gunner without killing him. The 50 cal's position meant any shot that disabled the weapon would likely hit flesh. She needed a different solution. She studied the weapon through her scope, saw the ammunition belt, saw the feed mechanism, saw the opportunity. Range 900 meters. Wind 3 clicks left. The belt fed from a metal box. If she could hit the box at the right angle, jam the mechanism, the weapon would be useless without a kill. She found the still point, fired. The bullet struck the ammo box's feed lips. Metal deformed. The next round jammed. The gunner pulled the charging handle. Nothing. The weapon was locked up tight. It would take 15 minutes to clear, maybe longer. Kit heard cursing over the scanner. Heard the frustration. Heard the fear starting to creep into their voices. They were Tier 1 operators. They weren't supposed to be scared, but fear was rational. Fear meant they were thinking. Thinking was her ally. At 1300, the female sniper found one of Kit's old positions. Kit watched her examine the hide, saw her run fingers over the rocks, studying, learning. Then the woman spoke into her radio. Kit strained to hear. Harlow doctrine, exact techniques. Kit's blood went cold. The woman knew the manual, knew the author, knew what it meant. The response came garbled over distance, but Kit heard enough. Impossible. Harlow died 20 years ago. The female sniper touched the ground where Kit had lain. Then someone studied her perfectly. Kit felt something shift in her chest, not fear, not quite. Something else. This woman, whoever she was, had learned from Kit's work, had taken those techniques and made them her own. There was legacy in that, continuity, the kind of thing that mattered when you'd spent 2 decades convinced you had left nothing behind. Afternoon shadows stretched long, 4 hours until sunset. JSOC would make their final push before dark. Kit counted remaining ammunition. 147 rounds. Enough. Probably. If she was perfect, if nothing went wrong, if luck held. Luck never held. At 1500 hours, Kit's scanner picked up new transmissions. Someone important joining the tactical net. The voice was cultured, educated, the kind of accent that came from good schools and better connections. It spoke with casual authority, gave orders that weren't questioned. Doyle, Reeves, Holt, you have property that doesn't belong to you. Return it and walk away. Kit's scope found the speaker. Older man, fit for his age, military bearing so ingrained it showed in how he stood. He wore civilian tactical gear, but every movement screamed operator. This wasn't just JSOC. This was someone who'd been Tier 1 when Tier 1 was just getting started. The man stood in the open, completely exposed, daring someone to shoot. Kit's crosshairs found his chest. 2 pounds of pressure. That's all it would take. End this now, save the Marines, complete the mission. But Chen's voice echoed in her memory. No kills, federal murder charges. Everything Kit had built in 20 years of anonymity would evaporate. They'd hunt her, find her. The cabin would burn. Her father's rifle would end up in an evidence locker. The few people who remembered her name would learn she'd become the thing the Corps had accused her of being. Her finger stayed outside the trigger guard. The man's voice carried across the compound. We can do this professionally or we can do this messy, your choice. From inside the building, a reply. Doyle's voice. Older now, but still carrying the same stubborn edge Kit remembered. We don't have your property, Colonel. We have the truth. The man, the colonel, laughed. It was an ugly sound. The truth. I've been hearing about the truth for 30 years. Let me tell you what truth is. Truth is what's written in after-action reports. Truth is what gets classified. Truth is what I say it is, and my truth says you three are traitors. Killing traitors is my job description. Kit's hands tightened on her rifle. She knew that voice. Not the name, not yet, but the timbre, the cadence, the casual cruelty wrapped in professional courtesy. She knew it the way you knew a scar. Intimate, permanent, the source of damage that never quite healed. A memory tried to surface. A helicopter, rotor wash, someone's hands on her shoulders, not helping, pushing, the ground rushing up, her chute deploying late, too late, almost too late. The impact that cracked ribs and shattered her left wrist and ended her career in the space between heartbeats. The colonel's face, younger then, smiling, saluting as she fell. Kit's breathing went shallow. Her scope wavered. She forced control. Found center. This wasn't the time. Later, after the Marines were safe, after 36 hours became 37, after Chen arrived with his warrant and his authority and his FBI badge, that would mean exactly nothing to a man who thought truth was negotiable. The colonel waited for a response that didn't come. Then he turned and walked back to his vehicle with the confidence of someone who knew snipers were watching but couldn't take the shot. He knew the rules, knew Kit was bound by them, knew that gave him freedom to maneuver. Kit whispered to the wind, "We'll see how long that lasts." At 1600, JSOC repositioned, tightened their perimeter, brought up additional equipment. They were preparing for a night assault, full thermal, NVGs, overwhelming firepower, the kind of operation that would be over in 6 minutes and leave no survivors. Kit had to disrupt, had to make them reconsider, had to buy time. She targeted their night vision equipment, shot the battery packs off operators' helmets, one after another, precision shots at 700 meters. The packs exploded in small bursts of sparks. Operators stumbled, blind, their expensive optics useless. Kit put 6 rounds down range in 18 seconds. 6 operators effectively neutralized. The female sniper finally got smart. Instead of hunting for Kit, she started tracking bullet trajectories, working backward from impact to origin. It was the right call. Kit had stayed in position too long, scored too many hits, left too much data. Kit saw the woman's scope swing toward her general area, saw her settle, saw her begin the deliberate scan that would eventually find Kit's hide. Time to move. Kit began her withdrawal. Slow, careful, never silhouetted against sky, using terrain to mask movement. It took 8 minutes to travel 200 meters. 8 minutes during which the female sniper methodically cleared positions. 8 minutes that felt like hours. She'd almost made it when the woman's scope locked on. Kit saw it in her peripheral vision, the tiny glint of glass catching light. The female sniper had found her. Kit froze. Absolute stillness. Became stone, became part of the mountain. Her pulse hammered, but her body didn't move. Not even breath. This was the test. The only test that mattered. Could she be patient enough to let the moment pass? The female sniper stared through her scope. Kit could feel the crosshairs on her. Could feel the woman's finger on the trigger. Could feel the decision being made. The woman's radio crackled. "Torres, report." Torres, that was her name. Kit filed it away. Torres spoke, voice steady and professional. "Negative contact. Sector clear." She was lying. Kit knew it. Torres knew Kit knew it. But Torres took her finger off the trigger and panned away. Kit waited 10 seconds. 20, 30, then moved. Smooth, slow, out of the line of fire. In her new position, Kit keyed her scanner to Torres's frequency, heard the woman's breathing, heard her whisper so quiet it might have been imagination. Harlow doctrine, could it be? Kit smiled. Small, grim. The woman had questions. Good. Questions meant hesitation. Hesitation meant Kit's Marines had more time. The sun touched the western peaks. Shadows flooded the valley. Temperature dropped 15 degrees in 20 minutes. Kit pulled on her fleece layer, checked her watch. 5 hours down, 31 to go. If Chen's timeline held, if the FBI didn't get blocked, if politics didn't interfere. Too many ifs. Kit had learned to ignore ifs. She dealt in what was. Right now, what was, 3 Marines trapped, 12 operators hunting them. 1 female sniper named Torres who had learned Kit's techniques and chosen not to report her position. The question was why. At 17:30, Kit's scanner erupted with traffic. Encrypted, military protocol. Someone was relaying information on JSOC's tactical frequency. Kit ran it through her mental decoder. She'd spent enough time around military comms to recognize patterns even when she couldn't decode content. Someone inside the compound was talking to the colonel. Inside. Someone with access to JSOC frequencies. Someone who knew defensive positions. Someone who had betrayed the very people they were supposed to protect. One of the three Marines was working for the other side. Kit scanned the compound through her scope, tried to read body language through walls and distance, tried to identify which of her old teammates had turned. Doyle, steady as mountains. Reeves, who could make miracles from wire and prayer. Holt, who'd driven them out of ambushes 3 times before breakfast. One of them was selling the others out. Kit's jaw tightened. This changed everything. The leak meant JSOC knew defensive positions, knew where the Marines were weakest, knew when to strike for maximum effect. Kit could delay, could harass, could make every meter cost blood and time. But she couldn't stop an assault guided by inside information. She keyed her scanner to a different frequency, tried to isolate the traitor's transmission. Got nothing but static and fragments. Whoever it was, they were being careful. Brief bursts, encoded language, professional tradecraft. The sky bled red and purple. Stars emerged. The temperature dropped below 40. Kit's breath misted. She ate an energy bar that tasted like cardboard and regret, drank water, stayed hydrated, stayed functional. Emotion was for later, for after, for the quiet moments when ghosts came calling. At 1800, JSOC moved. Not an assault, a repositioning. They were setting up for something bigger. The colonel directed traffic personally. Kit watched him through her scope, studied his movements, the way he carried himself, the casual authority, the absolute certainty that he would win because he always won. She knew him. The memory was closer now, just beneath the surface, a name trying to break through. Torres moved to a new position, higher ground, better angles. She was setting up for overwatch during the coming assault. Kit marked it, 750 meters northeast, elevated 30 meters, clear sight lines to the compound, and to 3 of Kit's possible firing positions. Torres was learning, adapting, thinking like Kit instead of thinking like the manual. That was dangerous. That was the difference between reading about tactics and understanding them. Torres was starting to understand. Kit relocated again, found a position Torres wouldn't expect because it was stupid, too low, poor visibility, bad escape route. But Torres would clear the smart positions first. By the time she checked the stupid ones, Kit would be gone. At 1900 hours, the scanner crackled with a transmission that made Kit's blood run cold. The traitor's voice, brief, encrypted, but clear enough. They have the journal. Doyle won't say where. Holt doesn't know. Journal. That was new intelligence. Not money, not classified intel, not weapons. A journal. Something physical. Something that could be hidden. Something worth killing for. The colonel's response came fast. Keep them alive until we locate it. Then accidents happen. Kit understood. JSOC needed the Marines breathing long enough to locate the journal. After that, everyone died. The timeline just compressed. 36 hours became however long it took to find one piece of evidence, which meant Kit's mission parameters had changed. She wasn't just delaying anymore. She was running a clock against interrogation, against torture, against 3 old Marines trying to protect something important enough to die for. The stars wheeled overhead, Orion rising, the Big Dipper settling. Kit had navigated by those stars in deserts and mountains and oceans. They were constant, reliable, unlike people, unlike orders, unlike everything that came from voices instead of light. At 2000, Torres found another of Kit's old positions. Kit watched through her scope as the woman examined the hide, ran her hands over the rocks, touched the ground where Kit had lain hours ago. Torres spoke into her radio. Sniper is using Harlow doctrine, exact techniques from the 2002 manual. The colonel's voice. Impossible. Harlow died in 2002. Torres, quiet, uncertain. Then someone studied her methods perfectly. Or what, Captain? Or she didn't die, sir. Silence. Long enough that Kit counted 15 heartbeats. Then the colonel, voice changed. Harder, colder, personal. Find them, bring them to me, alive. I need to see who this is. Torres, professional. Yes, sir. But Kit heard something else in Torres' voice. Doubt, question, the first crack in certainty. Torres was starting to wonder if the official story was true, if Harlow had really died, if the person outplaying JSOC's best was the ghost they'd been told to forget. Good. Let her wonder. Wonder meant hesitation. Hesitation bought time. Kit checked her ammunition. 109 rounds. Watch showed 20-15 hours. She'd been on station 11 hours. No food beyond an energy bar. No sleep. Body starting to register fatigue in the small muscles, the ones that mattered for precision work. She allowed herself 3 minutes. Closed her eyes. Controlled breathing. Let her heart rate drop from 50 to 42. Gave her body permission to process fatigue without succumbing to it. Her father had taught her this. Combat meditation. The still point in the turning world, where exhaustion couldn't follow. 3 minutes. Then eyes open, back to the scope, back to the mission. At 20:30, JSOC began their night assault, thermal imaging sweeps, NVGs, coordinated movement. They'd learned from the day's losses, tightened formation, reduced exposure, moved like water through the compound's perimeter. Kit couldn't stop them, could only slow them, make them pay for every meter, turn their assault into a grind. She shot helmet-mounted lights, plunged operators into darkness mid-step, shot weapons from hands, created confusion in their formations, shot equipment, radios, scopes, anything that made their job easier. 32 rounds in 4 minutes, 32 hits, 0 kills. The math was holding, but Kit's position was exposed. Too many muzzle flashes, too much data. Torres would be vectoring on her. Kit dropped into a mine shaft. The darkness swallowed her. She moved by touch, down sloping passages that hadn't seen light in 60 years. Her feet found rails. Her hands found support beams. The air tasted of rust and old explosions. She emerged 300 meters south, behind JSOC's lines, in the last place they'd expect. The assault stalled. Kit could hear their confusion over the scanner. The sniper had vanished. No muzzle flash, no thermal signature. Gone. Torres' voice, impossible, nobody moves that fast. But somebody had. Kit smiled in the darkness. At 2200, the assault broke. JSOC pulled back, regrouped. The Marines were still alive, still fighting, still holding. Kit had bought them 12 hours, 24 to go. She found a hide among the rocks, set a thermal decoy 30 meters away, laid motion sensors in a perimeter. Then she allowed herself to rest. Not sleep, just rest. Eyes closed, breathing steady, body on standby. Her scanner stayed active, monitoring frequencies, listening for the leak, for Torres, for the colonel's voice that still nagged at memory. At 23:45, Torres's voice came soft over a private channel Kit wasn't supposed to hear. The woman was talking to herself, or to someone who wasn't there. Harlow doctrine says patience is the only advantage that matters. Says high ground isn't a place, it's a principle. Says the best shot is the one you don't take. Torres paused. Kit could hear breathing, could hear doubt crystallizing into certainty. If Katherine Harlow is alive, why didn't she die in 2002? If she didn't die, who benefits from the lie? If the lie serves someone, what else have they lied about? Kit's eyes opened in the darkness. Torres was asking the right questions. Dangerous questions. Questions that would lead her to answers that would change everything. The scanner crackled with new traffic. The leak again. The traitor. Kit strained to hear. They fortified the north entrance. Weakest point is the eastern window. 3rd floor, Doyle will be there. Kit's heart sank. The traitor had just given JSOC the exact position to strike. Come dawn, they'd hit that window with everything. Doyle would be dead in seconds. Unless Kit was there first. She checked her watch. 0200. 4 hours until dawn. 4 hours to reposition, to set up, to be ready to interdict an assault she couldn't stop alone. But she wasn't trying to stop it. Just delay it. Just buy time. Just keep 3 old Marines breathing until help arrived. If help arrived, if Chen's warrant cleared, if politics didn't interfere, too many ifs again. Kit pushed them away, focused on what was. 3 Marines, 12 operators, 1 ghost in the darkness who refused to let the past stay buried. She moved through the night, silent, invisible. a shadow among shadows. Found her position 300 meters from the eastern window. Range 640 meters. Wind calm, temperature 34 degrees. Clear sky. Good shooting conditions. She settled in, made herself comfortable as rock in cold allowed. This was the part civilians never understood. The waiting, the patience, the absolute stillness required to maintain advantage. Sniping was 90% waiting and 10% violence. The people who couldn't master the 90% never survived the 10. At 0300 motion, Torres repositioning. Kit tracked her through the scope, watched her set up 800 meters north, overlapping Kit's field of fire. Smart. If Kit engaged at dawn, Torres would have a clear shot. But Torres still thought Kit was where Kit appeared to be. Didn't understand that Kit's thermal signature was decoy. That Kit's motion sensors were early warning. That Kit had been playing this game since before Torres was born. Experience mattered. Youth and technology couldn't replace decades of making mistakes and learning from them. Torres would learn that, maybe today, maybe the hard way. At 0400, Kit's sensor pinged, something moving, human-sized. Coming from the compound, someone was leaving the building, crossing open ground, moving toward the JSOC perimeter. Kit's scope found them, one person, alone, moving with purpose, not fleeing, not attacking, delivering. The traitor. Had to be. Coming to brief the colonel personally, Kit tracked them, watched them reach the JSOC lines, watched an operator wave them through, watched them enter a command tent. 5 minutes later, they emerged, returned to the compound. Kit's scope never left them, tried to identify features, build, movement patterns, anything that would tell her which of the 3 Marines had turned. But distance and darkness and tactical gear made everyone look the same. The traitor returned to the building, disappeared inside, left Kit with more questions than answers. At 0500, the eastern sky began to gray. False dawn, the world caught between night and day, the most dangerous time, when eyes adjusted to darkness struggled with increasing light, when shadows played tricks, when everything looked like threat. Kit's breathing slowed, 40 beats per minute, 38. She found the still point, the place where precision lived. Through her scope, she watched JSOC prepare. Watched them focus on the eastern window. Watched them position breaching charges and suppressing fire, and an assault element that would hit fast and hard and overwhelming. They were coming for Doyle, coming for the window the traitor had identified, coming to end this in one violent rush. Kit's crosshairs settled on the lead breacher, not on flesh, on equipment, on the charges he carried, on the detonator in his hand. She whispered to the wind, "Not yet, not today, not while I'm watching." At 0530, Bomb Majar 30, the assault began. Kit's finger found the trigger. The invisible war continued. Torres stared through her scope at the exact position where Katherine Harlow should have been. The thermal signature was clear. Body heat, human-shaped, elevated position with optimal sight lines. Every indicator said sniper. Every instinct said shoot. Her finger rested on the trigger. 2.3 pounds of pressure. The radio crackled in her ear. Mercer's voice demanding contact reports, demanding confirmation, demanding the blood he'd been promised. Torres took her finger off the trigger. She keyed her quadim, professional, calm, the voice of someone reporting negative results. Sector clear, no contact. The thermal signature didn't move, didn't react, just radiated heat into the cold dawn air like every decoy Torres had ever encountered in training. She'd almost fallen for it, almost taken the shot that would have revealed her position and wasted ammunition on fabric and chemical warmers. Whoever Harlow was, if Harlow still existed, she didn't make amateur mistakes. Torres panned her scope away. Let the moment pass. Let the lie settle into the tactical record where it would live alongside 1,000 other small deceptions that made up a classified career. But she whispered into the wind where no radio could catch it, words that felt like confession. Harlow doctrine. It has to be. The dawn assault began without her shot. JSOC operators moved on the eastern window with mechanical precision, flashbangs arcing, breaching charges positioned, suppressing fire from 3 directions. The kind of coordinated violence that turned buildings into coffins in under 6 minutes. Then the first breacher's charge detonated early, not by timer, not by command, just exploded in his hands with enough force to throw him backward, unhurt but stunned and suddenly questioning everything he knew about shaped charges and Murphy's Law. The sniper had shot the detonator. Again. From somewhere Torres couldn't see. From an angle Torres hadn't covered. From a position that shouldn't have existed because the ballistics didn't work, and the sight lines were blocked, and the whole thing was impossible, except it kept happening. Torres scanned frantically. Nothing. Just rock and shadow and the growing realization that she was being schooled by someone who thought in dimensions Torres was still learning existed. Kit's second shot dropped a flashbang mid-flight. The device exploded in a white burst that blinded operators through their NVGs. They stumbled, cursed, pulled back. The assault stalled before it started. Her third shot took out the communications relay. The antenna folded. JSOC's network degraded to shouting distance. No coordination beyond line of sight. No calling for support. No updates to higher command. They were isolated now, alone with their confusion and their wounded, and the creeping suspicion that they weren't hunting a sniper anymore. They were being hunted. Kit relocated through the mine tunnels. The darkness was total. Her hands found support beams slick with mineral deposits. Her feet traced rails that led deeper into mountainstone. She moved by memory and touch and the absolute certainty that light meant death. She emerged 400 meters north, behind JSOC's repositioned lines, in the space they just cleared and assumed secure. She found a hide among collapsed equipment, rusted machinery that provided cover and firing positions, and enough elevation to see the compound's northern approach. Through her scope, she watched operators regroup, watched them argue, watched their tactical cohesion fracture under the weight of an enemy they couldn't locate or predict, or counter with doctrine written for conventional threats. She'd fired 68 rounds since dawn, 68 hits, 0 kills. The math was holding, but her ammunition was finite. 141 rounds remained. She needed to be smarter, more selective. Every shot had to change the tactical picture or buy significant time. The Eastern Window assault came again at 06:15. Different approach. Smoke grenades first, then suppressing fire, then the breach. They'd learned, adapted, but they were still thinking inside the box, still following playbooks, still fighting the last war. Kit shot the smoke grenades while they were still in operators' hands. The devices detonated in clouds of white that engulfed the assault team. They stumbled blind through their own concealment. Kit used the chaos to shift targets, shot the breaching team's weapons from their grips, not to wound, just to disable, to create doubt, to make them question whether their equipment was faulty or if someone was systematically destroying their capability to function. Inside the compound, return fire erupted. The 3 Marines were still fighting, still holding, still buying time for an FBI rescue that might never come. Kit counted heartbeats, counted shots, counted the hours since Chen's call. 16 hours down, 20 to go. If the timeline held, if politics didn't interfere, if the warrant cleared and tactical teams mobilized, and all the machinery of federal law enforcement actually functioned the way it was supposed to. Too many ifs. Kit had stopped believing in ifs around the same time she'd stopped believing in Santa Claus and fair fights and the idea that doing the right thing mattered to people who wrote reports. At 0700, JSOC brought thermal imaging drones, small quadcopters with infrared cameras. They swept the ridgelines in grid patterns, methodical, professional, the kind of search that would eventually find every hide, every decoy, every position Kit had used. She couldn't shoot them all. Too many. Too fast, too small. Instead, she targeted their control station. The operator sitting in a vehicle with screens and joysticks and the comfortable certainty that remote warfare meant safety. Kit's bullet punched through the vehicle's window, not at the operator, at the control panel. Sparks flew, screens went dark. 3 drones tumbled from the sky like shot birds. The operator dove for cover, unhurt but thoroughly convinced that nowhere was safe anymore. Torres watched it happen through her scope, watched the impossible shot thread through a 6-inch gap in the vehicle's armor. Watched Kit demonstrate that technology was just another tool, and tools broke when you knew where to hit them. Torres keyed her radio. Sniper is neutralizing our technical advantages. Recommend we adapt to contested environment protocols. Mercer's voice came back hard. I don't need recommendations, Captain. I need that sniper's position. Sir, they're using advanced tactics. Possibly multiple shooters, definitely someone with Tier 1 training. There's only one shooter, I can feel it. One person making us look like fools. Find them. Torres wanted to say that one person making a dozen operators look like fools suggested the problem wasn't the operators. Wanted to say that Harlow doctrine wasn't just technique, it was philosophy, and you couldn't counter philosophy with firepower. Wanted to say a lot of things that would have ended her career. Instead, she said, "Yes, sir," and continued scanning sectors that revealed nothing but her own inadequacy. At 0800, Kit's scanner picked up the leak again. The trader's voice, brief, encrypted, but Kit's ears were trained for pattern recognition. She'd spent years listening to radio chatter in multiple languages, picking out meaning from tone and rhythm and the spaces between words. The voice was female. That narrowed it to Reeves, Tanya Reeves, who could rewire anything, who could hack encrypted channels, who could betray teammates while looking them in the eye and lying about fear. Kit's jaw tightened. She'd carried Reeves out of an ambush in Fallujah, taken shrapnel meant for her, bled on sand that drank blood like water and gave nothing back. And now Reeves was selling out Doyle and Holt for reasons Kit didn't understand but would learn. Because Kit was going inside, into the compound, into the kill zone, into the place where snipers didn't belong because snipers worked from distance in safety and the comfortable mathematics of death delivered from elevation. But the journal was in there, the evidence that made this worth dying for. And Kit needed to know what truth was valuable enough to turn old Marines into targets and old betrayals into current murder. She waited until 0900 when JSOC pulled back to regroup. Waited until Torres relocated to cover a different sector. Waited until the moment between actions when attention wavered and certainty cracked. Then she moved. The mine tunnels led under the compound. Kit navigated by touch and memory and the schematics she'd memorized from geological survey maps archived in county records. The air tasted of rust and old explosions. Water dripped somewhere in darkness. Her footsteps echoed against stone that remembered nothing and forgot nothing. She emerged in the compound's basement, a space that smelled of mold and ammunition and the particular sweat that came from people who knew they were going to die, but kept fighting anyway. The stairwell was dark. Kit climbed by feel, found the main floor, voices above, Doyle's rumble, Holt's nervous laugh, Reeves saying something Kit couldn't make out. Kit stepped into the room. 3 rifles snapped toward her. 3 pairs of eyes widened. 3 people who'd thought she was dead, suddenly confronting the ghost they'd mourned. Doyle recovered first, lowered his weapon. His voice came out hoarse. "Kit Harlow, son of a bitch. They said you were dead." "Not yet," Kit said. She scanned faces. Doyle looked older, gray in his beard, lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent looking at things he wished he hadn't seen. Holt had put on weight, soft around the middle in the way that happened to people who stopped rucking 70 pounds through mountains. Reeves looked thinner, harder, the kind of lean that came from stress eating away at everything that wasn't essential. "How are you here?" Holt asked. His weapon was still half raised, still uncertain whether to trust his eyes. "Chen called, said you needed help, said JSOC was coming to kill you." "Chen," Doyle repeated. "FBI Chen, the one who's supposed to arrive with a warrant and federal authority and all the backup we need." "That's the one." "He's not coming," Reeves said. Her voice was flat, dead, the tone of someone who'd already accepted the ending. "DOJ blocked him. We're on our own." Kit looked at her, really looked, saw the exhaustion, the fear, the guilt eating through her like acid. "How do you know that?" Reeves met her eyes, held them. "Because I've been listening, monitoring their channels, trying to find an advantage." The lie was smooth, practiced. If Kit hadn't heard the leak herself, hadn't identified the voice, she might have believed it. But Kit had spent 2 decades reading people who lied for a living. Reeves was good, just not good enough. Kit let it pass, turned to Doyle. "The journal, what is it?" Doyle glanced at Holt. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Doyle spoke, voice heavy with the weight of keeping secrets. "You remember Wade Mercer?" Kit's hands tightened on her rifle. "Yeah, I remember." "The helicopter?" "I remember. What they told us was you didn't secure your harness right. What they told the Board of Inquiry was equipment failure. What they wrote in reports was accidental death during training exercise. What actually happened," Kit said, "was Mercer pushed me, smiled while he did it, saluted as I fell." Doyle nodded. "We suspected, couldn't prove it. You disappeared into medical discharge and we got deployed and the whole thing got buried under classification and need to know. Why did he do it? Bosnia, 1996, village called Sratak. Mercer's unit executed 40 civilians. You were there. You reported it through proper channels. Chain of command buried the report. Mercer found out who filed it, decided to eliminate the problem. Kit felt the floor shift. The memory she'd spent 20 years avoiding crashed through every defense she'd built. Sritak, the village that appeared in nightmares. Women and children lined up against a wall. Mercer giving orders in that calm, professional voice. Kit refusing, Kit reporting, Kit learning that honor mattered less than politics and truth mattered less than silence. The journal, she said, voice raw. Your father's. World War II, Guadalcanal. Before he died in 1999, he wrote evidence in the margins. Dates, locations, names. He'd served with Mercer's father. Knew the family. When you reported Saratak, your dad investigated. Found documentation. Wrote it all down. Gave the journal to me before cancer killed him. Said if anything happened to you, find proof. Find justice. Kit's vision blurred. Her father, dying of cancer, using his last strength to protect her, to build a case to ensure that even if she couldn't speak, the truth would. Where is it? Kit whispered. Holt answered. Safe, hidden. Mercer knows we have it. Knows it's evidence of war crimes. Knows if it goes public, his career ends, his freedom ends, everything he built on lies and murder ends. So he's gonna kill you and take it. That's the plan. Our plan was to hold until FBI arrived. Now FBI isn't coming and we're dead men walking. Kit looked at Reeves, saw the guilt, saw the fear, saw the moment building toward confession or violence. How long until Mercer moves? Reeves opened her mouth, closed it. Tears formed. He knows we're weakening. Knows Chen isn't coming. He'll hit us at dawn tomorrow, maybe sooner. He just needs to find where the journal is hidden. And you're going to tell him, Kit said. Not a question. The room went silent. Doyle and Holt turned to stare at Reeves, understanding dawning, betrayal cutting through exhaustion into rage. Reeves collapsed, not physically, but something inside her broke, and all the secrets spilled out like water from a cracked dam. They have my son, Tyler, 8 years old, took him from school 3 days ago. Mercer's people, they send me photos, videos. He's crying, asking for me. They say I give them what they need. Tyler comes home. I stay silent. He disappears. Doyle's hand moved toward his weapon. Kit stepped between them. Wait, she's been feeding them our positions, Doyle snarled. Every time we moved, they knew. Every defensive plan we made, they countered. How many times did we almost die because of her? How many times did a sniper you didn't know existed save your ass? Kit shot back. You're alive because I compensated for the leak. Reeves is doing what any of us would do, protecting family. By betraying us. By making an impossible choice. Same kind of choice you made carrying that journal instead of destroying it. Same kind of choice Holt made staying instead of running. Same kind of choice I'm making being here instead of letting you all die. Holt spoke quietly. What happens now? Kit looked at Reeves. Where's your son? Safe house, Juarez, across the border. Mercer has connections with cartel. How do you report to Mercer? Encrypted channel. Dead drops. He doesn't trust electronic communication for sensitive intel. Next dead drop. Noon. I'm supposed to confirm journal location. Kit checked her watch. 10:15. Less than 2 hours. Here's what happens. You tell Mercer the journal is at my father's grave, Guadalcanal National Cemetery, 500 miles from here. That buys time, sends his people away, thins the force here. He'll send Torres, Reeves said, his best operator. She'll retrieve it and come back. Let her go. One less gun here means better odds. Doyle shook his head. And when Torres gets to the cemetery and finds nothing, Mercer executes all of us, including you. By then, Kit said, Chen will be here, or we'll have figured out another play. I'm buying time. Time is all we have. Reeves wiped tears. My son. Your son needs you alive and out of prison. That means we all survive this and Mercer goes down for war crimes. That's the only ending where Tyler gets his mother back. The words hung in the air. Truth and lies and hope mixed into something that might pass for a plan if you squinted and didn't think too hard about the odds. At 1100 hours, Kit's radio crackled. Not her scanner, her actual radio. The encrypted frequency she hadn't given to anyone because the only people who'd known it were dead. A woman's voice, young, controlled. Harlow, I know you're inside. We need to talk, alone. Tors, Kit looked at Doyle. Stay here, watch Reeves. She breaks for that dead drop on schedule. You let her. She tries anything else, stop her. Where are you going? To have a conversation I should have had 34 years ago. Kit climbed to the roof. The morning sun was bright, too bright. She was exposed up here, vulnerable. But Torres had asked for a loan, and a loan meant trust. And trust was a currency Kit hadn't traded in since 2002. Torres stood in the open, 100 meters away, no weapon raised, hands visible. The kind of position that said either profound stupidity or profound confidence. Kit's scope found her. Young, fit, Latina features, hair pulled back in a tactical braid. Eyes that held steady even knowing they were in crosshairs. Kit spoke into her radio. Talk. My name is Elena Torres, Captain, United States Marine Corps, Scout Sniper qualified. Current assignment, JSOC Special Operations. Congratulations. You want a medal or you want to get to the point? You're Katherine Harlow. Not a question. Kit said nothing. Let silence be confirmation. Torres continued. Your manual, the Harlow Doctrine. I studied it at Quantico, memorized it, built my career on it. When they told me you died in 2002, I thought I'd lost the chance to meet the woman who wrote the only sniper manual that made sense. Who said I wrote it? Your techniques, your positioning, your non-lethal precision. Nobody shoots like that unless they invented the methodology. You're here, you're alive, and I need to know why Mercer told me you were dead. Kit's finger moved to the trigger, not threatening, just ready. Why do you care? Because I'm your daughter. The world stopped. Kit's scope wavered. 20 years of certainty shattered like glass under a bullet. What? November 1990, Camp Pendleton. You were 18, Marine Corps boot. One night with a man you never saw again. 9 months later, I was born, adopted out, raised in the system until Mercer found me, told me my mother was a Marine, a hero, dead in the line of duty, trained me to honor her legacy. Kit's hands shook. For the first time in 16 hours, for the first time in years. The rifle trembled in her grip, and she forced it steady through pure will. I don't have children. You didn't know you had children. The father never told you. I was adopted before you knew I existed. Mercer found me through records he shouldn't have accessed, pulled me into JSOC, made me his weapon, his legacy, never told me you were alive. How do you know any of this is true? Because I ran DNA through military databases 3 years ago, unauthorized, illegal, found a match. Katherine Harlow, Scout Sniper, listed as deceased 2002, but the sample was from a physical you took in 2001. They don't delete those records, they just seal them. Kit's mind raced. 1990, she'd been young, stupid, drunk after a deployment that went wrong. One night with a corporal she never saw again. She never thought about consequences because consequences were for people who planned futures, and Kit had been living moment to moment, deployment to deployment, convinced she'd die young like everyone else who did what she did. But she hadn't died, and somewhere in those lost years, a child had grown, had trained, had learned Kit's methods from a manual Kit had written to save lives, had become the weapon-hunting Kit now. Why tell me this? Kit said, voice breaking despite everything. Because Mercer lied about you, about everything. I found the journal. I know what's in it. I know what he did in Shritak. I know why he tried to kill you. And I know my whole career is built on serving a man who murders civilians and frames Marines and destroys anyone who threatens his power. What do you want from me? I want to know if you would have kept me. If you'd known, if things were different. The question cut deeper than any bullet. Kit lowered her rifle, stepped into view, faced her daughter across 100 meters of open ground and 23 years of stolen time. I don't know, Kit said. I was 18. I was stupid. I thought I'd be dead by 30. I never planned for a future because futures were for other people. But if I'd known, if someone had told me, I like to think I would have tried. I like to think I would have been something other than the ghost everyone says I became. Elena's voice was steady, but Kit heard the tears underneath. Mercer told me you abandoned me. Told me you were weak. Told me honor meant following orders even when orders were wrong. Honor means doing right even when it costs everything. Even when nobody sees. Even when the people you serve destroy you for it. Your career is built on Mercer's lies. But your skill is real. Your dedication is real. You're a Marine. That's real. The question is what kind of Marine you choose to be. The kind that protects criminals or the kind that stops them. That's the choice, yeah. Elena lowered her head. If I help you, I'm committing treason. If you help Mercer, you're enabling war crimes. Pick your treason. Silence stretched. Wind moved between them. Somewhere a bird called. The sun climbed toward noon. The world turned indifferent to the choices that would shape it. Elena looked up. The journal is at your father's grave. Guadalcanal National Cemetery. Mercer is sending me to retrieve it in 1 hour. I know. That's where Reeves is telling him it is. It's not there, is it? No. Where is it really? Safe for now. Go to Guadalcanal. Take your time. Get delayed. Buy us hours. When you get there and find nothing, tell Mercer you searched thoroughly. Tell him it might have been moved. Tell him anything that keeps him here questioning instead of there killing. He'll figure it out. By then, Chen will be here, or we'll have a new plan. I'm buying time. That's all any of us are doing. Buying time and hoping it's enough. Elena nodded, slow. The gesture of someone committing to a choice that would define everything that came after. I'm going to lose my career. Probably, but you'll keep your soul. Fair trade in my book. We're strangers. We're family. There's a difference. Elena turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back. After this, if we survive, can we talk? Really talk. Not over radios and scopes, but face to face like actual people. Kit felt something crack in her chest. Something she'd thought was dead. I'd like that. 23 years late, but yeah, I'd like that. Elena walked away. Kit watched her go. Watched her daughter, stranger, ally, enemy, all of those things and none of them disappear into JSOC lines. Then Kit returned to the compound. Found Doyle and Holt watching her with questions written on their faces. Torres is leaving, Kit said. Going to look for the journal. We have maybe 6 hours before Mercer realizes he's been played. And then, Doyle asked. Then we improvise. Chen's not coming on schedule. FBI is blocked. We're on our own until we're not. Holt laughed, bitter. So same as always. Same as always. At 1200, Reeves made her dead drop. Kit watched through her scope. Watched Reeves place the information. Watched the JSOC runner retrieve it. Watched the message reach Mercer. Through her scope, she saw his reaction. Saw him read. Saw him nod. Saw him issue orders. 30 minutes later, Elena Torres departed in a vehicle heading south, toward Guadalcanal, toward a cemetery that held Robert Harlow's grave but no journal, toward 6 hours of driving that would buy 6 hours of life. The math was holding, barely. At 1300, Kit's encrypted phone buzzed, not the one she'd destroyed. A different burner Chen had provided for emergencies. She answered, Chen's voice, strained, exhausted. Kit, I have bad news. Doje blocked you, I know. Worse, Mercer has friends in the department. They're not just blocking my warrant, they're issuing a counter warrant for your arrest. Kit's world tilted. What? Vigilante action. Assault on federal officers. They have testimony from wounded operators. They have ballistic evidence. They have everything they need to paint you as a domestic terrorist attacking JSOC personnel in execution of their duties. Their duties include murdering 3 Marines. Their duties, according to official record, include neutralizing hostile combatants who stole classified material. The classification on that material is above my clearance, above my director's clearance. Mercer built this trap carefully. You walk out of there, you're arrested. You stay, you're killed. Either way, the journal's credibility dies with you. Kit closed her eyes, counted to 10. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. Because I put you in this position. Because I believed the system would work and I was wrong. What about Doyle, Reeves, Holt? If they surrender, they'll be arrested. If they fight, they'll be killed. If the journal surfaces, it'll be dismissed as fabricated evidence from discredited sources. Mercer wins. He always wins. That's what he does. Kit looked at her old teammates, looked at Reeves crying quietly in the corner, looked at Doyle checking ammunition with the resignation of someone who'd always known how this ended. Looked at Holt staring at nothing with the 1,000-yard stare of someone already gone. There's always another way, Kit said. Not this time. I'm sorry. I failed you. I failed them. You should run, disappear. You're good at that. Save yourself. Kit killed the connection. Dropped the phone, crushed it under her boot. Looked at Doyle. Chen's not coming. FBI's not coming. Federal warrant for my arrest. We're officially enemies of the state. Doyle nodded, like he'd expected it, like he'd always known. How long until Mercer moves? Torres will be gone 6 hours. When she reports the journal isn't there, Mercer will know we played him. Call it 1800 hours, 5 hours. Enough time to run. I don't run. Neither do we. Holt spoke for the first time in an hour. The journal, if we all die, what happens to it? Kit smiled. Grim. It goes public anyway. I set up a dead man switch before I came here. If I don't check in every 12 hours, everything uploads. Media, Congress, international courts, everywhere that matters. Mercer can kill us, but he can't kill the truth. Bluff, Doyle said. You know me better than that. Yeah, I do. So what's the play? We hold. We make Mercer come to us. We make every meter cost blood. We fight until we can't fight. And we trust that somewhere in this broken system, someone gives a damn about 3 Marines who did the right thing. That's not a plan, that's hope. Hope's all we've got. You want to surrender? Doors right there. Want to run? I'll cover your withdrawal. Want to stay and fight? I could use the help. Doyle checked his rifle, loaded a fresh magazine, chambered around. Marines don't surrender. Holt did the same. Marines don't run. Reeves stood, wiped tears, picked up her weapon. Marines don't abandon each other, even when they should. Kit felt something she hadn't felt in 20 years. Unit cohesion. The thing that made 4 people into 1 weapon. The thing that survived when everything else failed. Then let's give Mercer a fight he'll remember, Kit said. At 1400, JSOC probed the defenses. Testing, cautious. They'd learned respect. Kit made them learn more. Shot weapons from hands, disabled vehicles, created chaos without creating casualties. The math held. Every round bought seconds. Seconds bought minutes. Minutes bought hours. But ammunition was finite. 107 rounds remained. Time was finite. 4 hours until Mercer learned he'd been played. Hope was finite. Chen wasn't coming. The FBI wasn't coming. The cavalry was a myth people told themselves to sleep at night. At 1500, Kit repositioned to the roof, found her hide among collapsed infrastructure, set up for long-range work, the kind of shooting that separated professionals from pretenders. Through her scope, she found Mercer. Watched him pace, watched him check his watch, watched him radiate the confidence of someone who'd never lost, who'd built a career on winning, who believed the world bent to his will because it always had. Kit's crosshairs settled on his chest. 2 pounds of pressure, 1 shot. End this now. Eliminate the threat. Save her Marines. Damn the consequences. Her finger touched the trigger, found the still point, the space between heartbeats where perfect shots lived. Then she moved the crosshairs, aimed at the ground between Mercer's feet, fired. The round impacted. Mercer jumped, looked around, confused, scared. Kit's voice came over the open channel. That was a miss, Colonel. On purpose. Next time it won't be. Mercer's face went red. You're dead, Harlow. You just don't know it yet. Been hearing that for 20 years. Still waiting. Torres will return. Will confirm you lied. Will bring the journal. Then I'll execute your Marines while you watch. Then I'll find you. And I'll make the helicopter look like mercy. Torres isn't bringing you anything. She knows what you did in Shritak. She knows what you are. She's not your weapon anymore. She's mine. Silence. Long enough that Kit counted 20 heartbeats. Then Mercer's voice. Changed. Personal. Venomous. Torres is my daughter, not yours. I raised her. I trained her. I made her everything she is. You're just the biological accident that gave her DNA. She'll choose me. She always does. Kit's hands tightened. We'll see. Yes, we will. And when she arrives with the journal, when she proves her loyalty, I'm going to make you watch while I burn it. Then I'm going to make you watch while I execute your precious Marines. Then finally, I'm going to let you die, knowing you failed. Again. The transmission ended. Kit lowered her rifle, looked at her hands, steady despite everything, looked at the sun. 3 hours until Torres reported. 3 hours until the lie unraveled. 3 hours until the truth came out, and Mercer learned that some bonds ran deeper than training. If Torres chose Kit, if blood meant more than duty, if a woman who'd spent 23 years believing one story could accept a different one. Too many ifs again. Kit was drowning in ifs. At 1600, Doyle's voice on the radio. Kit, movement, south perimeter. They're staging. Kit relocated. Found the southern approach. Saw JSOC massing, not probing, preparing. The kind of buildup that meant commitment, meant overwhelming force, meant this was the push that wouldn't stop. She counted operators. 11, Torres gone meant 11. Still overwhelming odds. Still professional killers with unlimited ammunition and federal authority and the backing of a system that wanted Kit dead. She counted her ammunition. 93 rounds. Not enough. Not nearly enough. She counted the time. Torres would call in 2 hours, would report the journal wasn't there, would force Mercer's hand, or would report success, would bring evidence, would choose the man who raised her over the ghost who birthed her. Kit couldn't control that choice, could only control her own, could only keep fighting until fighting became dying, could only buy seconds and minutes and hours for 3 Marines who deserved better than a government that ate its own. At 1700, Mercer's voice on the loudspeaker. Harlow, last chance, surrender, face justice, let the Marines live. Kit's response was a single shot. Mercer's loudspeaker exploded. Sparks and smoking plastic. Message received. The assault began. JSOC came in 3 elements. North, south, east. Coordinated. Overwhelming. The kind of attack that crushed resistance through sheer volume of violence. Kit met them with precision. Shot the northern elements breaching charges. Disabled the southern elements suppressing fire. Stopped the eastern element cold with a shot that took out their team leader's weapon mid-stride. But there were too many. Too much firepower. Too many angles. Kit was one person, one rifle, finite ammunition, and infinite threat. Inside the compound, Doyle and Holt returned fire. Reeves worked communications, trying to jam JSOC frequencies, trying to create chaos, trying to buy seconds that added up to survival. Kit relocated, fired, relocated, fired. The rhythm of combat, the dance of death. 93 rounds became 80, 80 became 67, 67 became 43. She was running dry, running out of time, running toward the cliff edge where hope ended and mathematics took over. At 1730, Torres's voice on the radio. Early, 2 hours early, Kit's heart stopped. Mercer, Torres reporting. Kit held her breath. I'm at Guadalcanal Cemetery. I've searched the gravesite. I've searched the surrounding area. The journal isn't here. Mercer's voice, cold. Explain. Either it was never here or it was moved. Recommend I expand search parameters. Negative, return to base. We've been played. Sir, I might be able to find it. The sniper lied. The Marines lied. Everyone's been lying. Return now. That's an order. Silence. Then Elena's voice. Quiet. Final. I found something, Oli Corono. Something you should know. Report. I found evidence in the cemetery records. Katherine Harlow visited this grave 8 times in the last 20 years. Official records say she died in 2002. Care to explain the discrepancy? The radio went silent. Kit counted heartbeats. 30, 40, 50. Mercer's voice, different now, dangerous. Where are you, Captain? Guadalcanal National Cemetery, as ordered. Your actual location. I'm exactly where you sent me, sir. You're lying. You're with her, aren't you? With Harlow, my own daughter, betraying me. I'm not your daughter. I'm hers, and I'm done being your weapon. The transmission ended. Kit's radio crackled. Elena's voice on a private channel. Mom, I'm sorry I called early, but he needed to know, needed to understand what he lost. Kit's throat closed. Where are you, really? Heading back. 2 hours out. I'll be there by 1930. Hold until then. Elena! Yeah. Thank you for choosing. Thank you for being worth choosing. The transmission ended. Kit wiped her eyes. No time for tears. No time for emotion. Mercer knew now. Knew he'd been played. Knew his weapon had turned. Knew the journal was still out there and time was running out. He'd come with everything. No holding back. No measured response. Everything. Kit checked her ammunition. 37 rounds. Checked her watch. 1800 hours. Elena 2 hours out. Chen not coming at all. 3 Marines and 1 ghost against 11 operators with nothing left to lose. The math didn't work. The odds didn't work. None of it worked. But Kit had never been good at math anyway. She'd always been better at impossible. At 1815, Mercer appeared. Standing in the open, weapon raised. Not at the compound, at the sky, at God, at whatever force allowed the world to betray him. Harlow! His voice echoed off mountains. You took my daughter. You took my legacy. You think you won. You think Torres coming back changes anything. Let me tell you what happens next. Kit's scope found him. Perfect shot, clean kill, 2 pounds of pressure. She didn't take it, Mercer continued. In 1 hour, I breach that compound. I execute Doyle. I execute Holt. I execute Reeves. I execute you. When Torres arrives, I'll make her watch, make her understand the cost of betrayal. Then I'll execute her too, my own daughter. Because loyalty matters more than blood. Because duty matters more than family. Because I built this and I will burn it before I let you take it from me. Kit's radio, her voice steady. You built this on murder, on lies, on war crimes and dead civilians. Torres didn't betray you, she escaped you. There's a difference. She's mine. She's her own. That's what you never understood. People aren't weapons. They're people. They make choices. Torres chose. Then she chose death. Mercer lowered his weapon, pointed at the compound, not the defensive positions, not the barricades, the structural supports, the weight-bearing walls. I'm bringing this whole building down. Everyone inside dies. You can watch or you can die with them. Your choice, Harlow. Your only choice. He turned, walked away, issued orders. JSOC operators moved, positioning demolition charges, enough explosives to collapse the entire structure, to bury evidence and witnesses and truth under tons of rubble. Kit's ammunition, 37 rounds, not enough to stop them all, not enough to disable the charges, not enough to win, but maybe enough to delay, to buy minutes, to buy time for Elena to arrive, to buy one more miracle from a universe that owed her nothing. At 18:30, Kit's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then instinct, paranoia, hope made her pick up. Chen's voice. Kit, change of plans. I found something. A federal prosecutor. Honest. Rare as hell, but she exists. She reviewed the evidence, issued arrest warrants for Mercer and his command staff. For war crimes, for conspiracy, for murder. I'm en route with federal marshals. ETA, 1900. Kit's hands shook. You're coming. Finally late, but coming. Can you hold 30 minutes? Kit looked at the demolition teams, looked at her ammunition, looked at the odds. I can hold forever if I have to. Good, because Mercer's going to prison. Officially, legally, the way it should have happened 20 years ago. Hold the line, Kit. Justice is coming. The transmission ended. Kit allowed herself 3 seconds of hope. 3 seconds of believing the system worked. 3 seconds of thinking this might end without blood. Then the demolition charges started clicking. Armed, active, counting down. 30 minutes until detonation. 30 minutes until the building collapsed. 30 minutes until her Marines died. Unless Kit could disarm them. All of them. 11 charges placed by professionals. In the dark. Under fire. With 37 rounds in 30 minutes. The math still didn't work. Kit smiled. She'd always preferred impossible anyway. She keyed her radio to the Marines inside. Doyle, Holt, Reeves, listen carefully. Demolition charges, building perimeter. 30 minutes. I need you to trust me. I need you to do exactly what I say. I need you to hold 30 more minutes and then this ends. Can you do that? Doyle's voice, steady. We've held this long. We can hold longer. Good. Because Chen's coming. Elena's coming. Federal marshals are coming. Arrest warrants for Mercer. This ends legally. This ends right. We just have to survive 30 minutes. 30 minutes, Holt repeated. Half an hour. We've done worse. Yeah, Kit said, we have. She cited the first demolition charge. Range 400 meters. The charge itself the size of a bread box. The detonator a 3-inch cylinder. She needed to destroy the detonator without triggering the charge. Needed surgical precision. Needed impossible accuracy. She found the still point, fired. The detonator sparked. Died. The charge went inert. 1 down, 10 to go. 36 rounds left. 30 minutes until federal marshals. 30 seconds until JSOC realized what she was doing and stopped her. Kit fired again. Another detonator, another spark, another charge neutralized. Mercer's voice screamed over the radio. Stop her! Kill the sniper! Bring that building down now! JSOC operators scrambled, tried to protect the remaining charges, tried to hunt Kit, tried to do everything at once and accomplished nothing. Kit worked methodically. Charge 3, charge 4, charge 5. Each shot perfect, each detonator destroyed, each second buying survival. At 1850, she disabled 8 charges. 3 remained. 10 rounds of ammunition left. 10 minutes until Chen arrived. 10 seconds until JSOC adapted. An operator raised a detonator, manual backup, planning to blow the remaining charges remote. Kit's scope found his hand, found the debris, found the impossible shot between fingers and technology. She fired. The detonator exploded. The operator screamed, dropped the device, clutched his hand. Alive, wounded, no longer a threat. 2 charges left, 9 rounds, 9 minutes. Kit relocated, found new position, sighted charge 9, fired, detonator sparked and died. 1 charge left, 8 rounds, 8 minutes. The final charge sat on the building's main support beam, the critical point. One detonation there would collapse everything. Kit couldn't see it from her position, couldn't get an angle, couldn't make the shot. She keyed her radio. Doyle, the last charge. Main support beam, ground floor. You need to disarm it manually. I'm on it. You have 8 minutes. I'm a demo specialist. I need 4. Doyle moved inside the compound. Kit provided cover, shooting operators who tried to breach, shooting weapons and equipment and anything that threatened Doyle's approach. 6 rounds left, 6 minutes. Doyle working in darkness with hands that had disarmed hundreds of devices but never one this important. At 1856, headlights appeared on the southern road. Multiple vehicles, federal escort, Chen had arrived. Mercer saw them too. Saw his world ending, saw arrest, saw prison, saw everything he'd built collapsing around him. He raised his rifle, not at the Marines, not at the federal vehicles, at Kit's position. He'd found her, locked on, prepared to fire. Kit's scope found him simultaneously. Mother and enemy, distance 800 meters, wind calm, perfect conditions. Her finger touched the trigger, found the still point, found the space between heartbeats, found the choice between justice and revenge. She fired. Her bullet struck Mercer's rifle, not his chest, not his head, his weapon. The rifle exploded in his hands. He stumbled backward, dropped the remains, stared at his bleeding palms. Kit's voice on the open channel. That was a choice, Mercer. I could have killed you. I didn't. Remember that when they read your rights. Federal vehicles surrounded the compound. Marshals emerged. Professional, armed, federal authority manifest. Chen's voice on the loudspeaker. Wade Mercer, you are under arrest for war crimes, for conspiracy to commit murder, for violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You have the right to remain silent. Mercer stood motionless, watching his operators raise their hands, watching his career end, watching justice, delayed 20 years, finally it arrived. At 1900, Doyle emerged from the compound, holding the final detonator, disabled, safe. He raised it overhead. Victory. The Marines had held. The building stood. The truth survived. Kit lowered her rifle, felt exhaustion crash through every defense, felt 20 hours of combat drain from her body like water from a cracked vessel. Her radio crackled. Elena's voice. Mom, I'm here. I'm safe. We're safe. Kit looked up, saw her daughter emerging from a vehicle, saw her walking toward the compound, saw family she'd never known running to meet her. Kit whispered into the radio, yeah, we're safe. 4 Marines, 1 FBI agent, 1 truth too big to bury, against a system designed to silence them. They'd won, barely, impossibly, but won. Kit closed her eyes, let the moment wash over her. Let 20 years of being a ghost fade into 20 seconds of being human. Tomorrow would bring debriefs and testimony and prosecutors. Tomorrow would bring questions about vigilante justice and federal authority and the gray spaces where law bent around necessity. But tonight, right now, in this moment, 4 old Marines stood together and breathed free air and knew they'd done what honor demanded. Kit smiled, small, grim, satisfied. The invisible war was over. The visible accounting would begin. But for now, for this moment, it was enough to be alive, to have held the line, to have made impossible shots in service of stubborn truths, to be Katherine Harlow, Marine, sniper, mother, ghost no longer. Just a woman who'd climbed one more mountain and refused to fall. The federal marshals moved like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Coordinated, professional. The kind of efficiency that came from executing warrants on people who thought themselves untouchable. They surrounded Mercer with the practiced ease of handlers corralling a dangerous animal. Weapons drawn but not threatening. Just present. Just ready. Mercer stood motionless. His hands were still bleeding from where Kit's bullet had destroyed his rifle. He stared at the blood like it belonged to someone else. Like the whole situation was happening to a different person in a different world where consequences existed for people like him. Agent Chen emerged from the lead vehicle. Older than Kit expected, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes that spoke of too many cases that went wrong. But his voice carried authority when he read the charges. War crimes, conspiracy to commit murder, violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, each word landing like a hammer blow on coffin nails. Kit watched from her position 400 meters away, still prone, still behind her scope, still ready, because 20 years of being hunted taught you that safety was an illusion, and the moment you relaxed was the moment everything went wrong. But this time felt different. This time, the good guys had badges and warrants and the backing of federal law. This time, justice wore a suit instead of hiding in shadows. Elena Torres stood beside Chen, no longer in tactical gear, just fatigues, just a Marine who'd chosen truth over orders. She met Kit's eyes across the distance. Even without magnification, Kit felt the weight of that gaze. 23 years of questions, 23 years of absence, all compressed into one moment of recognition. Kit stood, slung her rifle, started the long walk down from the ridge. Her body cataloged every complaint. The knee that had been locked in position for 18 hours, the shoulder that ached from supporting a 12-pound rifle, the ribs that still remembered a helicopter fall from 2 decades ago. But she walked steady, walked like a Marine, walked like someone who'd earned the right to approach her daughter as an equal. The distance closed. 400 meters became 200. 200 became 50. 50 became 10. Then Kit stood face to face with the woman she'd never known existed, the child she'd never held, the Marine she'd never trained, the daughter who'd learned Kit's techniques from a manual and surpassed the teacher without knowing her name. Elena spoke first. Her voice was steady, but Kit heard the tremor underneath. I've imagined this moment for 3 years, since I found the DNA match. I planned speeches, practiced questions, rehearsed anger and acceptance and everything in between. Now I'm here, and I don't know what to say. Kit understood. Start with the easy stuff. You heard? Negative you? Nothing that won't heal? Your team? My former team, I imagine my career is over. Helping a fugitive, disobeying direct orders, probably a dozen other charges they'll invent. You did the right thing. Right doesn't always mean legal. Kit smiled, grim. I've been living in that gray space for 20 years. Welcome to the club. Chen approached. He looked exhausted, the kind of tired that came from fighting bureaucracy and losing repeatedly until you won once. Katherine Harlow, I need you to come with me. Federal debrief. Your testimony is crucial for the prosecution. Am I under arrest? Technically, there's a warrant for vigilante action against federal officers. Practically, I'm choosing to interpret your actions as civilian cooperation with an ongoing FBI investigation. The distinction is thin, but it exists. How thin? You shot 11 federal operators, wounded all of them, disabled their equipment, engaged in an 18-hour firefight against a JSOC kill team. I didn't kill anyone. That was the agreement. I know. That's the only reason you're not in handcuffs. Non-lethal restraint against overwhelming force. A federal prosecutor with a soul might call it self-defense. A prosecutor without one might call it terrorism. Right now, I have the prosecutor with a soul. Tomorrow, politics might give me the other one. We need to move fast. Kit looked at Doyle emerging from the compound. Holt beside him, Reeves following, 3 Marines who'd held an impossible position because someone asked them to. 3 people who deserved better than a government that tried to kill them for telling truth. What about them? Kit asked. Full immunity in exchange for testimony. The journal they protected contains evidence of 17 separate war crimes spanning 3 decades. Mercer wasn't just Shratak. He's been running illegal operations since Bosnia, using JSOC authority to eliminate witnesses, building a career on murder and calling it national security. The journal goes public? Parts of it, what we can declassify without compromising ongoing operations. Enough to end Mercer's career. Enough to force accountability. Enough to matter. Kit turned to Elena. You should go. Whatever comes next, you don't need to be part of it. Elena's jaw set. That stubborn look that probably came from Kit's DNA or from shared experience or from the simple reality that some traits transcended genetics. I'm exactly where I need to be. You're my mother. I just found you. I'm not losing you to federal bureaucracy without a fight. I'm a stranger. You're family. There's a difference. The words echoed what Kit had said 18 hours ago over a radio. Hearing them return felt like completion. like a circle closing, like the universe occasionally got things right despite its best efforts to the contrary. Chen gestured toward the vehicles. We need to move. Mercer's lawyers are probably already filing motions. We have a 12-hour window before politics catches up to justice. Let's use it. They loaded into federal vehicles. Kit in one, Elena in another, Doyle, Holt, and Reeves in a third. Mercer alone in a fourth, handcuffed, silent, staring at nothing with the empty eyes of someone whose world had collapsed. The convoy drove south, away from Ruby Ridge, away from the compound that had almost become a tomb, toward Denver, toward federal buildings and interrogation rooms and the machinery of justice that ground slow but supposedly ground fine. Kit rode in silence, watching Colorado scroll past the window. Mountains that had witnessed everything and judged nothing. She'd spent 20 years in these mountains, hiding, training, building a life from the scraps of a career the Marines had thrown away. Now that life was ending, or transforming, or something in between that she couldn't name yet. Her phone buzzed, the one Chen had given her, a text message, unknown number. The journal is safe, published to 17 media outlets, congressional oversight committees, international criminal courts. Mercer's done. Your father would be proud. Kit stared at the message, tried to place the sender, failed, but the content mattered more than the source. Her father's final gift, his dying effort to protect her, his handwritten evidence in the margins of a war journal. All of it public now, all of it matter of record. Justice delayed but not denied, she typed back. Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who owed you. Fallujah 2001. You saved my patrol, I never forgot. Now we're even. Kit searched her memory. Fallujah. The endless urban combat. The dozens of patrols she'd provided overwatch for. She couldn't isolate one name, one face. But it didn't matter. Some debts transcended names. She typed, thank you. No response came. Just silence. Just the knowledge that somewhere out there, someone had been watching, waiting, ready to ensure the truth survived, even if Kit didn't. The convoy reached Denver at 2200 hours. Federal building, underground parking, elevators that required 3 different security clearances. The kind of place where secrets went to die or be reborn as testimony. They separated Kit from Elena. Separated Doyle, Holt, and Reeves into individual rooms. Standard procedure. Prevent coordination. Ensure independent accounts. Kit understood the logic even as she hated the isolation. Her interrogation room was sterile. White walls, metal table, 2 chairs, camera in the corner with a red light that meant everything would be recorded and analyzed and used to build cases or destroy them depending on politics and timing. Chen entered. Behind him, a woman Kit didn't recognize. 50s, professional suit, the kind of presence that said federal prosecutor who'd spent decades learning to read liars. Chen made introductions. Katherine Harlow, meet Assistant U.S. Attorney Victoria Brennan. She's handling the Mercer prosecution. Everything you say here is on record. Everything matters. Think before you speak. Victoria sat, opened a folder. Her eyes scanned documents with the speed of someone who'd read 1,000 similar files. Ms. Harlow, you're in an unusual position. Technically, you engaged in vigilante action against federal officers. Realistically, you prevented a massacre and preserved evidence of war crimes. The law is flexible when it wants to be. I want to be flexible, but I need your cooperation. What do you need? The truth? All of it. No embellishment, no hero story, just what happened and why. Kit leaned back, considered. 20 years of hiding, 20 years of avoiding questions and official records and anything that might reveal her existence. All of it ending now because the alternative was watching Mercer walk free. She started talking. The debrief took 4 hours. Kit described every shot, every decision, every moment from Chen's phone call to the final demolition charge. Victoria asked questions that probed for inconsistency, for fabrication, for the kind of details that separated lived experience from constructed narrative. Kit answered everything, because she'd lived it, because the truth was simpler than lies, because after 20 years of being a ghost, being real felt like oxygen after drowning. At 0200, Victoria closed her folder. Okay, I believe you. More importantly, I can sell this to a jury if it comes to that, but I'd rather not go to trial. Trials are unpredictable. Juries are emotional. I want Mercer to plead, to accept responsibility, to go to prison quietly. What are the odds? Without your testimony, 0. Mercer claims the operation was authorized, claims Doyle's team stole classified material, claims JSOC acted within legal parameters. With your testimony, I can prove he lied, prove he tried to murder witnesses, prove Shratak, prove everything. Then you have my testimony. There's a complication. The warrant for your arrest, vigilante action. I can make it disappear, but it requires you to accept certain conditions. Kit's jaw tightened. What conditions? No media, no interviews, no book deals. You testify in closed session. Grand jury, sealed record. Then you disappear again. Officially, this operation never happened. The public knows Mercer was arrested. They know war crimes were committed. They don't know a 52-year-old woman fought JSOC to a standstill for 18 hours. That stays classified. Why? Because the alternative is explaining how a dishonorably discharged Marine engaged in combat operations on U.S. soil, explaining why JSOC was operating domestically, explaining why the FBI needed civilian help to stop federal operators. The explanations create more problems than they solve. Better to classify everything and move on. Kit understood. The system protecting itself, again, always. What about Doyle, Holt, Reeves? Full immunity, classified testimony. They disappear too. Reeves gets her son back. All three get their reputations restored quietly. No parades, no medals, just the knowledge they did right and survived. And Elena? Victoria's expression softened. Captain Torres committed treason by the letter of the law. By the spirit, she prevented a massacre. I'm recommending honorable discharge, full benefits, clean record. She'll never work in JSOC again, but she'll have her freedom. Kit processed. The deal was better than she'd hoped, worse than she deserved, exactly what the system offered when it couldn't decide between punishment and gratitude. I accept. Smart choice. Sign here and here. Initial here. Welcome back to the land of the living, Ms. Harlow. Try to stay out of trouble. Kit signed documents that made her cooperation official and her identity classified. Signed away her story in exchange for survival. Signed the deal that would let her Marines walk free and her daughter avoid prison. She signed it all without hesitation because some trades were worth making. At 0400, they released her to a hotel room with federal guards outside. Chen promised transportation in the morning. Promised Elena would be safe. Promised Mercer would be prosecuted and convicted and imprisoned where he couldn't hurt anyone. Kit believed him because the alternative was madness. She showered, 20 hours of sweat and gun oil and mountain dirt washing away. The water ran brown, then clear. She stood under the stream until her skin pruned and the hotel's hot water ran cold. Stood until she felt clean enough to sleep, clean enough to stop being a sniper and start being human. She collapsed into bed, closed her eyes, expected nightmares, found nothing but darkness and rest. The dreamless sleep of someone who carried a mission to completion and could finally let it go. She woke at noon, sunlight streaming through hotel curtains. Her body ached. Everything hurt. But the pain was familiar, comfortable. The price of demanding impossible things from aging flesh. Someone knocked. Kit opened the door. Elena stood there. Civilian clothes. Jeans and a flannel shirt that could have come from Kit's own closet. The similarity was jarring. They let you go? Kit asked. Honorable discharge, effective immediately. 34 years old, and my military career is over. Elena's voice held no regret, just statement of fact. I'm sorry. Don't be. I signed up to serve. I served. The service ended. Now I figure out what comes next. You have plans? Some. Chen offered me a consulting position, training FBI sniper teams, reforming doctrine, teaching what you taught me. I didn't teach you anything. You learned from a manual. You wrote the manual. That's teaching. Just delayed. Kit stepped aside, let Elena enter. They sat across from each other. Mother and daughter, strangers connected by DNA and shared understanding of what it meant to put crosshairs on another human being and make mathematics decide life or death. Elena spoke first. I have questions. 23 years of them. I don't know where to start. Start anywhere. I'll answer what I can. Why didn't you try to find me after you recovered? After the discharge, you had 20 years. Kit had expected this question. Dreaded it. Had no good answer. I didn't know you existed until yesterday. Your father never told me. The adoption happened before I knew I was pregnant. By the time I could have searched, you were already placed. Already had a family. I thought finding you would disrupt your life. Thought you were better off without a ghost for a mother. You thought wrong. Yeah, I did. But I made the choice with incomplete information. That's all anyone does. Were you happy these 20 years, living alone, being no one? Kit considered. Happy isn't the word. Content, maybe. I had purpose, training people, maintaining skills, preparing for calls that came once every few years. It wasn't the life I planned, but it was mine. Do you regret it? The Marines, the discharge, everything that led here? I regret Sritak. Regret not fighting harder when they buried my report. Regret trusting a system that ate its own. But the discharge, the helicopter, the 20 years after? No, that path led to yesterday, led to saving Doyle and Holt and Reeves, led to stopping Mercer, led to meeting you. Some paths only make sense looking backward. Elena nodded, processing. What happens now with us? Are we family or strangers who happen to share DNA? Kit met her daughter's eyes, saw herself reflected, saw stubbornness, incompetence, and the particular damage that came from living in violence. I don't know. I've never been a mother. You've never had one. We're both making this up as we go, but I'd like to try, if you're willing. Try what exactly? Knowing each other, learning who we are when we're not shooting people or stopping war crimes, having coffee, talking, building something that might become family if we're patient. Elena smiled, small, cautious. I'd like that. Good, because I'm terrible at relationships, but I'm excellent at patience. That's something. They talked for 3 hours. Surface questions at first, favorite foods, books, music. The kind of getting to know you conversation that normal people had without the weight of 23 years and federal prosecution hanging over them. Kit learned her daughter liked jazz, ran marathons, read philosophy, spoke 3 languages, had traveled to 40 countries on deployments Kit would never know details about. Elena learned her mother lived off-grid, trained civilians in precision shooting, maintained her father's rifle like it was sacred, had never remarried, had never tried, had built a life from solitude and discipline and the absolute certainty that being alone was safer than being known. At 1500, Chen knocked. Ladies, I have news. Mercer took a deal, pleading guilty to war crimes, conspiracy, murder, 35 years federal prison, no parole, he'll die inside. Kit felt something release in her chest. It's over. Officially. The journal is public record now. Congressional hearings scheduled. Military oversight committees investigating. Mercer's unit disbanded. Everyone who enabled him under investigation. This goes deeper than one man, but it starts with one man in prison. What about us? Doyle, Holt, and Reeves are free, cleared of all charges. Reeves' son was recovered from Juarez safe house this morning. Whole family reunited. They want to see you, say thank you. Kit followed Chen to a conference room, found her old teammates waiting. They'd cleaned up, shaved, slept, looked almost human instead of the combat-damaged warriors she'd been protecting. Doyle stood when she entered, offered his hand. Kit took it. He pulled her into a hug that spoke of shared deployment and shared survival, and the particular bond that came from bleeding together. You saved our asses, he said. You held the line. I just bought time. For 18 hours, against a JSOC kill team, while wounded and outnumbered and operating alone. That's not buying time. That's legend. Holt approached. His hug was gentler. I knew you didn't die in that helicopter. Knew they were lying. Spent years trying to find you. They buried you deep. Had to stay buried. Mercer would have tried again if he'd known. He knows now. How's that feel? Like completion. Like a mission finally finished. Reeves hung back, guilt written on her face. Kit approached her, pulled her into a hug before Reeves could apologize again. Your son is safe. That's what matters. You made an impossible choice. Any of us would have done the same. Reeves cried against Kit's shoulder. Relief and shame and gratitude mixing into something too complex for words. Kit held her, let her process, let the moment be what it needed to be. They talked for an hour, trading stories, filling gaps, learning what 20 years had done to people who'd once been young Marines convinced they'd live forever. None of them had. They just learned to carry the weight better. At 1700, Kit left them, found Elena waiting outside. Want to take a drive? Where to? Somewhere I should have brought you 23 years ago. They drove north. Kit behind the wheel of a rental that handled nothing like her truck but got them where they needed to go. Conversation was sparse, comfortable. The kind of silence that existed between people who understood that words weren't always necessary. They reached Guadalcanal National Cemetery at 1900. The gates were closing, but Kit's federal credentials from Chen got them inside. She led Elena to the older section, rows of white markers dating back to 1945, warriors who'd fought a different war for similar reasons. She found her father's sir, Robert Harlow, Sergeant Major, United States Marine Corps, 1920 to 1999. The stone was simple, no flourishes, just facts, just service and sacrifice reduced to dates and rank. Kit knelt, placed her hand on the stone. Dad, I'm sorry it took so long, but I finished what you started. Mercer's in prison. The journal worked. Justice happened. The way you said it would if we were patient. Elena knelt beside her. Your father, my grandfather, I never knew him. He was good, steady, the kind of man who did right because wrong wasn't an option. He taught me patience, precision, honor, everything that mattered, everything I needed to survive when the Corps threw me away. He would have been proud of yesterday, of you. He would have been proud of you. Marine, sniper, someone who chose truth over orders. That's the legacy he wanted, not medals or rank, just people who gave a damn about doing right. They sat in silence, 3 generations of Marines, 2 living, 1 remembered, connected by service and sacrifice and the understanding that some things mattered more than comfort. At 2000, they left the cemetery, drove back to Denver. The city lights spread below them like stars fallen to earth. Civilization built on top of wilderness, order imposed on chaos, the eternal human effort to make sense of a world that resisted sense. Elena spoke into the darkness. What happens now? After all this settles, after the prosecutions and debriefs and everything, what do you do? Kit didn't answer immediately. Let the question sit. Let the implications expand. I don't know. I've spent 20 years being a ghost, being no one, having no future beyond the next call. Now I have options. Chen offered me consulting work, training reform, teaching the next generation. It's appealing. But I'm 52. I'm tired. My body hurts. I've spent 2 decades in isolation. Maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to be a person instead of a weapon. What does that look like? I don't know yet. Maybe a house instead of a cabin. Maybe neighbors. Maybe coffee shops and book clubs and all the normal things normal people do. Maybe learning to be your mother instead of a stranger who shares your DNA. Elena reached across the center console, took Kit's hand. I'd like that. Yeah? Yeah, I've had a career, had adventure, had everything the Marines could offer. Now I want what I never had, family, someone who understands, someone who looks at the world the way I do and doesn't think I'm broken. You're not broken. You're built different. There's a distinction. So are you. Maybe that's the thing we have in common. Not just DNA, but understanding what it means to be the person who takes the hard shot so others don't have to. They drove in silence. Mother and daughter, warriors trying to become something else. Something softer. Something that might pass for normal if you didn't look too close. 3 weeks later, Kit stood in her cabin. Boxes everywhere. 20 years of accumulated life reduced to cardboard and packing tape. She'd decided. The cabin sold to a family who wanted isolation. Her father's rifle packed carefully. Her equipment cataloged and stored. She was leaving. Moving to Denver. Accepting Chen's consulting offer. Building a life that included other people. Elena had found an apartment 3 blocks from Kit's new place. Close enough to have coffee. Far enough to maintain independence. They'd agreed to dinner twice a week. Phone calls as needed, the tentative structure of people learning to be family. The cabin felt empty. Echoing, Kit walked through rooms that had been home. Remembered the nights spent cleaning weapons. The mornings practicing dry fire. The years of preparation for calls that came rarely but demanded perfection. She touched the wall where her father's rifle had hung, whispered to the space, "Thank you for the shelter. For the silence, for the years, but it's time to go." Her phone rang. Chen. Kit, I have something. Not urgent, but interesting. Federal contractor position. 6-month assignment. Training counter-sniper teams for FBI regional offices. Good pay. Federal benefits. Chance to influence doctrine nationwide. I'm listening. The catch is you'd be training people to stop snipers like you. Teaching them to recognize Harlow doctrine. to counter it, to neutralize shooters who learn from your manual. Kit smiled. So I'd be teaching people to beat me. In theory. In practice, you'd be ensuring the next generation is better than this one. Isn't that the goal? Progress, evolution, building something that outlasts you. When do I start? 3 months. Gives you time to settle in Denver. Get comfortable. Learn to be a civilian. I've never been a civilian. Then learn. You've got time now. Use it. The call ended. Kit looked at the empty cabin, at the life she was leaving, at the future she was choosing. It felt right. Felt like completion. Felt like the mountain had taught her everything it could, and now she needed different lessons. She locked the door, loaded the last boxes into her truck, drove down the mountain one final time. In her rearview mirror, the cabin shrank, became small, became memory, became another chapter in a life that refused to follow anyone's script. Denver welcomed her with traffic and noise and the overwhelming presence of humanity. Kit found her new apartment, 3rd floor, corner unit, windows that overlooked the city. She unpacked slowly, found places for her father's rifle, for her equipment, for the pieces of her past that mattered. Elena arrived with pizza and beer. They ate on the floor because Kit's furniture hadn't been delivered yet, talked about nothing important, laughed at stupid jokes, built the kind of comfortable existence that families created from repetition and presence. At midnight, Elena left. Kit stood at the window, watched the city breathe, watched cars move like blood cells through arterial streets. Watched life happen to millions of people who had no idea a ghost had just become real. Her phone buzzed, text message, unknown number. New assignment, Phoenix, cartel sniper terrorizing Border Patrol, 6 agents dead, local PD requesting specialist assistance. Interested? Kit stared at the message, the old life calling, the pull of purpose, the knowledge that her skills still mattered, still saved lives, still made a difference. She typed back, details? The response came with attachments, photos, reports, ballistic analysis, a pattern of kills that showed professional training, someone who knew what they were doing, someone who needed to be stopped. Kit studied the information, felt the familiar rush, the activation, the shift from person to weapon, from civilian to warrior, the transformation that had defined her for 30 years. But this time felt different. This time she had something to lose, someone to come back to, a life that extended beyond the mission. She typed, I'll think about it. The response was immediate. Don't think too long. People are dying. Kit set the phone down, looked at her father's rifle mounted on the wall, looked at the city spread below, looked at the choice stretching before her. She could say no, could stay in Denver, could build the normal life she'd never had, could be Elena's mother, could teach from classrooms instead of ridgelines, could retire the ghost and become someone new. Or she could say yes, could take one more mission, could save lives that needed saving, could prove that 52 wasn't too old. That experience still mattered, that the old breed still had value. The choice was hers. For the first time in decades, completely hers. She went to bed without answering. Let the questions sit. Let the implications expand. Dreamed of mountains and cities and daughters and fathers and all the lives she could have lived if history had been different. She woke at dawn, made coffee, sat at the window watching sunrise paint the city gold. Her phone sat on the table, silent, waiting, patient as mountains. Kit picked it up, typed a response. Send mission parameters. I'll review. If I take it, I work alone. No oversight, no interference. My terms are no deal. The response came within seconds. Agreed. Parameters attached. Good hunting. Kit read the mission brief, studied the targets, analyzed the ballistics, began the mental preparation that transformed her from Katherine Harlow, civilian, into Kit, sniper, ghost. But this time would be different. This time she had someone to call when the mission ended, someone to have dinner with, someone to share the silence with, someone who understood. She picked up her phone, called Elena. Mom, it's 6 in the morning. I know. I have something to tell you. I'm taking a mission. Phoenix, 6 weeks maximum. I wanted you to know. In case. Silence. Then Elena's voice. Calm. Understanding. Be careful. Always am. Come back. Plan to. I mean it. We just started this. Don't make me an orphan again. Kit felt her throat tighten. I'll come back. Promise. Good, because we have dinner Thursday. I'm cooking. You can cook? Barely, but I'll try. That's what family does. They try. Yeah, they do. The call ended. Kit started packing. Not boxes this time. Mission gear, rifle, ammunition, rangefinder, medical kit, everything she'd need to be excellent one more time. But packed beside the tactical equipment was a photo. Elena and Kit at her father's grave. Both smiling, both looking like they belonged together, both looking like family. Kit placed the photo in her chest pocket, over her heart, where it would remind her why coming back mattered, why survival was non-negotiable, why this mission had to be perfect because someone was waiting. She loaded her truck, pointed it south toward Phoenix, toward cartel snipers and border warfare and the kind of violence that required surgical solutions. But in her rearview mirror was Denver, was Elena, was the life she'd returned to, the life she'd never dared imagine when she fell from that helicopter 22 years ago. The road stretched ahead, the past receded behind. Katherine Harlow, 52 years old, dishonorably discharged, written off as dead, drove toward one more impossible mission. But this time she wasn't a ghost. She was a mother, a consultant, a woman with a future that extended beyond the next shot. She was Kit Harlow, Marine, sniper, survivor. And for the first time in 22 years, she was choosing her missions instead of letting them choose her. The invisible war had ended, but the visible life was just beginning. And somewhere on a ridgeline in Arizona, a cartel sniper was about to learn that the old breed never died. They just got more patient, more precise, more dangerous. High ground meant patience. Patience meant choices. Choices saved lives. Kit's father had taught her that. Now she'd teach it to the next generation. Through training, through example, through the absolute certainty that experience mattered more than youth and wisdom, mattered more than technology, and some things could only be learned by surviving long enough to understand them. She drove into sunrise, toward Phoenix, toward purpose, toward the mission that would prove she still had value. But packed in her heart beside the photo was the knowledge that when this mission ended, someone would be waiting. Someone would care whether she came back. Someone would notice if she disappeared. That made all the difference. That made her dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with marksmanship. Because warriors who had nothing to lose were reckless. But warriors who had everything to lose were careful, precise, patient. And patience, as always, was the only advantage that mattered. Kit smiled. The road stretched endless, the future unknown, the past finally settled. She was ready for the mission, for the return, for the life that came after. For being Katherine Harlow, not a ghost, not a weapon, just a woman who'd learned to shoot, to survive, and finally to come home. The invisible war was over. The visible peace had begun. And in the rearview mirror, Denver shrank to a point of light, waiting for her return. Kit Harlow's story reminds us that the system doesn't always recognize the warriors who serve with honor, but their skills, their sacrifices, and their values never expire. At 52, she proved what many of you already know. Experience isn't just about age, it's about wisdom under pressure. To every veteran watching this, your service mattered. Your experience still matters. The young generation needs to learn what you know. What's your take? Have you ever felt written off because of age, only to prove them wrong? Drop your story below. And if you believe the old breed still has lessons to teach, hit subscribe, because we're just getting started. Next mission drops soon, don't miss it.